Hey, silly humans. Have you ever been in an argument with someone? Really? Well, that's perfect. So how did that go for you? Yeah, but I mean, like, who'd you end up agreeing was right? What do you mean you didn't agree on anything? Was it not a constructive discussion? Do you not even know what I mean by constructive discussion? Hold on. I'll find you an example. All right. This is awkward. Let me try a different hook. Um, does the truth matter to you? Do you know truth? Aw, you're so cute. All jokes aside, do you want to know the truth? Now, I don't have the truth, and even if I thought I did, the goal here isn't to give it to you. The goal here is to discuss how Homo sapiens, more like Homo arrogans, are fucked and will never ever find, let alone disseminate the truth, and to imagine an alternative world. My life goal is to promote the higher cognitive evolution of our species. That's what I say on first dates, anyway. Okay, so there are two really big ways our species can evolve. We can think better and we can collaborate better. Life can be better. My name, Eris, is an acronym for what I consider the four tenets of good thinking, and therefore a good world. Erection, rectum, infection. No, sorry. That was an attempt at a joke. Empiricism, reason, imagination, and skepticism. We are in dire need of developing all four, but today I want to focus on skepticism. Of the four tenets, I consider skepticism of self the easiest and probably the one most lacking. All you have to do is know you are probably wrong. So let's define skepticism and its opposite, explore its value and its danger, and imagine how much better the world would be if we were more skeptical of ourselves. And I'm also going to share with you experiences I've had and my personal perspective to give you context. So, what is skepticism? I don't mean we should reject everything. To be skeptical as I mean it is to reject certainty and to prefer to suspend belief when evidence is absent. Specifically, skepticism of self is to know that you may be wrong about any objective or moral issue. And the opposite of this kind of intellectual and moral humility is intellectual and moral arrogance. Being convinced of your own rightness by either willfully ignoring counterargument and counter-evidence or by not making a concentrated effort to explore the counterarguments and evidence. Let's imagine an alternative world. An intellectual utopia. Imagine that under some well-circulated Facebook post about some issue, there weren't 350 comments staunchly in support and 350 comments staunchly against. Imagine here that strangers' interactions didn't start out as ignorant exchanges and devolve into shouting matches. Imagine that when two people disagreed about something, they exchanged evidence and logic and questions and responses until they discovered truth together. That is how we could collaborate to learn about the world. Let's also imagine a moral utopia. A world where if you told someone they were an asshole or manipulative, they'd be inclined to believe you. Imagine that coworker you hate, okay? Imagine you go to her and say, "Hey, I think you're a kind of a selfish bitch. You take credit for others' work and blame others for your own mistakes." And imagine she went, "Oh, really? Wait, can you give me an example? I don't want to be a selfish bitch." Can you imagine a world like that where we could work together to be more moral and make better decisions for our community, for our fellow man, for our fellow woman? Well, that kind of exchange would require that both parties believe they themselves may be wrong. They must be skeptical of themselves. The problem is that if only one person is skeptical of herself, she will be trampled by the other. What if that coworker isn't actually a selfish bitch, and then you, refusing to doubt your judgment, convince her that she is? Because she wants to take seriously your criticism, as she should. It's happened in my life and took me to a really low point. I picked up a razor and pulled up my sleeve because, long story short, a former friend told me that I had manipulated her and emotionally abused her. Well, that would suck if that were true. And basically, even though I had no intention to do that or any experience of having done so, I was so skeptical of myself that when she told me I had, I basically believed her and felt such great confusion because of the lack of evidence, but also shame because of her confidence, that I wanted to quit this world. Why was I so open to others' analysis of my psyche and behaviors that I wanted to open my veins, and die, even though all I'd wanted was for her to be happy? I study neuroscience, and even if you don't, it's a self evident, although often ignored truth, that the mind is eager to protect its concept of self. The mind will do whatever it takes to make sure that we see ourselves as the infallible hero. Our unconscious works extra hard in any morally ambiguous situation to rationalize that we are in the right and the other was in the wrong. Likewise, our mind works extra hard in any epistemologically ambiguous situation, or intellectually ambiguous, or truthfully ambiguous. Okay, I don't know how to use words. Let's try that again. Likewise, our mind works extra hard in any, factually ambiguous situation or debate to rationalize that we are right and the other is wrong and fucking stupid. To compensate for these tendencies that we have to ignore our faults, I'm committed to not trusting myself and instead to believe anyone who is critical of me morally or intellectually. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think it's a generally noble attitude to have. And because of it, I have learned many a time that I had wronged someone. In such cases, I heard such a criticism as, "You betrayed me," and rather than rejecting it outright to protect myself, I trusted there was some truth to it and took it in. In this case, you look at the facts, though, and, well, I just didn't do what she ended up believing ever so confidently that I did. Like I said, it's a long story because it's actually the arrogance of others' judgments of me that convinced her. Anyway, so bottom line, it's great to be skeptical of the self, but the problem occurs when others don't have that value. And so that's the danger of skepticism. When you're the only one doubting your morality or ideas, you will too easily succumb to those who are 200% sure they're right. It's actually like the saying that I hate: stand for something or fall for anything. Finally, I understand it. In this intellectual and moral climate, and it's always been this way, it's really hard to be truly open-minded, lest you'll fall for others' bullshit. And so we're faced with a vicious dilemma. In order to be able to collaborate well, individuals must be skeptical of themselves. However, in order to be safely skeptical of oneself, we must all be able to collaborate well. And for all of our species' history, we have chosen to prepare instead for mutually assured destruction. We believe 100% what we believe to avoid falling for what idiots believe. And being so certain of what we believe, we naturally impose our beliefs on others, often using illogical rhetoric and fallacies. And naturally, no one changes their mind, and we just argue and fight wars, and this will ultimately be the death of us. And that's where I'm going with this. Moral and intellectual arrogance will be the death of us, for those it hasn't already killed. Knowing we are right and the other is wrong will destroy us. Or worse, it will destroy those people who are willing to open themselves up to critique and dissent. Each person trusting his unreliable mind completely, consciously finding bullshit reasons to maintain the illusion of our rightness, and being so compelled by our self-delusions that we commit to deluding others, who in turn resist by spewing back their own delusions until we drown in this faux intellectual filth. So what's the solution? You need to doubt yourself. You need to know that you may be wrong, and you need to ask questions. And when someone asks you questions, you need to respond with your evidence and be prepared to learn that you misinterpreted your evidence. We can work together well if each of us has this intellectual and moral humility. And if we work together well, we will be safe to be morally and intellectually humble. Let me reiterate. In an ideal world, we could trust what people say to us, their moral condemnations of us, because we would know that they're only saying it because that's what the evidence suggests, and that they are critical of themselves and would be willing to accept they were wrong if it were demonstrated, that we could discuss things. But we do not live in such a world. We live in a world where people speak confidently without justification or skepticism. And it sucks. So if this isn't clear, or better yet, if you think I'm wrong, say so in the comments. I assume I'm wrong about everything I think. So help me get closer to knowing truth. And this video probably wasn't clear. So tell me what I can clarify. This is the first of many drafts of the presentation of this concept. Now, if it was clear, and if you do agree or you learned something, tell me about a situation where you, not someone else, were sure of something and eventually accepted you were wrong. How did it happen? What changed your mind? How did it help you be more skeptical of yourself going forward? Anyway, thanks for watching, silly people. While you think about how you can better doubt yourself and open yourself up, consider this. There's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which basically is the finding that people tend to overestimate their abilities and knowledge. So I sent an article about the Dunning-Kruger effect to a friend of mine, and in that article, David Dunning is quoted as saying, "The first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is you don't know you're a member of the Dunning-Kruger Club," and that people miss that. So what did my friend say to me after she read it? She said she had to send the article to some friends who she thinks are definitely in that group. She laughed smugly. Oh my gosh, I know some people who are in that group. What about you? We're all in that group. Did you read the article?